I'm joined now by Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine. And Senator Kaine, we originally were going to focus first on foreign policy, the Saudi Arabia trip. But I tell you, the gas tax holiday politics sort of hits really close to home for both of us. I'm a Virginia resident.
Right.
You're obviously a senator from Virginia. Governor Youngkin just last week was trying to convince the Democratic-controlled Virginia State Senate for a gas tax holiday. They said no. He's, of course, gloating today. Hey, Virginia Senate Democrats, do what President Biden wants you to do. It does seem as if the president is in one place and a lot of Democratic legislators, whether on the state level or the federal level, are in another. Fair?
I think that's right. Look, we're looking for solutions, Chuck, and I don't have a problem supporting President Biden on the gas tax holiday, although I think there's a better way to come at this, and I'm going to talk to my colleagues about it. I think what we ought to do is have an excess profits tax on the big oil producers who are raking in record profits and rebate that tax, 100% of it rebated back to consumers. This isn't to grow government, and it's not permanent. But while gas prices are at these really high levels, you know, let's go after the oil companies that are raking in excess profits and give the money right back to everyday people. You don't take money out of the Transportation Trust Fund to do that. If you're going to have a vote in Congress anyway, why not have a vote that would really put dollars back in people's pockets because of these high gas prices? That would be my preference. I don't have a problem voting for a temporary cessation of the federal gas tax. I don't give advice to my state senators about what they need to do with Governor Youngkin's proposals because I don't want them telling me what I should do in the U.S. Senate. I'll listen to them. They can listen to me. But I think that there are some better ways to handle this. Some of the other ways that the president announced today, encouraging more domestic production, that's important, even looking at measures that he can do it. These are really important. But the one thing I wouldn't do, I wouldn't go have a sit-down meeting with MBS in Saudi Arabia. I'm very opposed to that idea because of his demonstrated involvement in the assassination of a Virginia resident journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, who worked for the Washington Post.
What circumstance would you have sat down with MBS?
I would sit down with MBS only after there was some accountability for his involvement in this murder. That doesn't mean I wouldn't talk to the Saudi foreign minister. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't meet with the King of Saudi Arabia. President Biden has a long-time relationship with him. But MBS has a bloodstain all over his hands. And our intel community and those of other countries have basically said that's the case. And you can't, well, what's the biggest battle in the world right now? It's how much we let authoritarians get away with in Russia and Ukraine, for example. So since that is an existential issue right now, I don't think you suddenly say that a guy who killed an American resident journalist, well, I guess we got to talk to him now because gas is at $5 a gallon.
Right.
No, we don't. We're the United States of America. We don't have to talk to him.
Well, isn't that how Saudi Arabia why MBS feels untouchable? Is that at the end of the day, he's got the black gold that he thinks the Western world needs. And at the end of the day, it's sort of like, you need me more than I need you.
Yeah, but Chuck, that used to be the case, and that's the way he thinks. That's not the case anymore. We don't need him. We don't need the oil. We got plenty of production of our own. Again, we can deal with the king or the foreign minister. We can deal with the trade minister. But when somebody thinks they have us over a barrel, I don't want to deal with that person. And my worry, frankly, is an MBS is going to have a meeting like this and then laugh behind our back at the meeting. So I think meeting with him in particular is an absolutely horrible idea. Now, I'm biased. I'm a Virginia senator, and I got members of Jamal Khashoggi's family that live in Virginia. But again, what is the big battle in the world right now? It's how much we let authoritarians run roughshod over democratic values and human rights. And I don't think we can, stand strong against Vladimir Putin and then just turn to casual shrug of our shoulders toward MBS.
Senator, are you starting to wonder whether these oil sanctions are even working on Russia? So here we are. In some ways, we've raised the price of gas on our own to confront Putin. And in theory, that all makes a lot of sense, except it hadn't worked yet. He's now selling oil to China and India.
At escalated prices.
Yes, he's making more money. Now, maybe it's a short-term gain, but it does feel as if these sanctions have boomeranged.
Well, I would say, Chuck, you got to look at this as a whole package. It is energy sanctions. It's canceling Nord Stream 2. It's humanitarian aid and military aid. It's Finland and Sweden, after decades of not wanting to be part of NATO, saying, we're coming into NATO now. Let us in as quickly as we can get in. It's Vladimir Putin's maximalist war aims to decapitate the Ukrainian government and take it over, now shrunk to a tiny corner of eastern Donbass and Donetsk and Luhansk and Crimea. So all of these together, the U.S. and our allies, and I give the Biden team great credit for pulling it together, is having a dramatic impact on Vladimir Putin and Russia. It's not having the impact that we want as fast as we want, and that's the tragedy of it, but it is having a significant impact. So I think you need to look at all of these sanctions together.
No, I get that. I guess I wonder, are the energy sanctions the self-defeating ones? Is that what we're learning? That, look, as much as it felt good in the moment to say we were doing an oil embargo on Russia, it just wasn't. It turned out it just isn't feasible.
Well, it's not feasible so much in the short term, but look, people are learning lessons, and I think they're learning lessons about the need to wean themselves away from petro-dictators, whether it's Vladimir Putin or anybody else. This is a time where sometimes high gas prices, make us want to produce more, but in this instance, high gas prices driven by an authoritarian are pushing innovators in the United States and around the world to go stronger and stronger and stronger into low and no carbon energy. Painful in the short term, it's going to be good for the environment and good for our national security in the long term.
Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, it's always a pleasure to get your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Chuck.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.